It's mostly just the mic because I'm going to screen share, but.
Okay. I can see it moving when you're talking. Those little green lights to the right.
Oh, yeah, it should be picking it up then. Okay, so screen share.
Test 1 2 test.
Microphone test
1 2 1 2. You should just drop.
What up, Detroit?
What up, Detroit?
Just sign in first.
Like
One should I sign in?
Does this computer have speakers hooked up to it at all, or?
Yes, it's actually up there.
Okay, I just was going to test that if we could hear if someone actually got on live.
I can check.
Oh, there we go with the infinite cascade.
Does this computer have speakers hooked up to it at all? So that's working. Now we want to see if.
Hello, delay.
When I click on that, it doesn't.
Dang it.
Speakers.
Oh.
High definition audio device.
It doesn't help when these are completely turned down.
Oh.
And then
Hello.
also,
That's gonna be really.
That sounds loud.
When it comes on.
Yeah.
not now, I turned that one down. Go to control panel in the sounds and you can test.
Dude, you want to I have no.
Testing. No, you're not getting nothing on it right now.
Actually,
Actually,
IP address.
Is it this one?
Yes, it's that one.
I have like 2.
Like what?
Oops,
They're like, is this a cluster? Or is this
oh, right there, right?
It's class W.
It's a cluster.
No.
Ping.
There we go.
There we go.
Access.
Okay.
All
right. So it's actually, it's the top one.
No, it ain't. You got the bottom one selected.
Boyfriend misses.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
What's weird though is why won't the volume pop up there? I don't know. Anyway,
Well, you got this volume control right here on this.
okay. Don't want to do the Logitech update.
Just remember my job, you know, to pay for it.
Yeah, black suit jeans, we had the white black top out, the feather and the silver bullet.
Okay. Dang it.
I've studied that gentleman's
Movement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, he used to read the same blue line when I had to go to make campus. Studied.
Sorry, it's just dragging on.
I'm like, dude, where'd you
Getting everything ready here.
I know, that's why he's like that. Because the world isn't smacked in like being so well, I'm all for being like yourself and like crazy and zany, but there's just a line in the sand I gotta try, you know, like my foot goes down.
It's such a funny story.
What's that?
One time we were really drunk. You can already tell it's a good story.
Yeah.
I forgot that I let my wife think my toenails pink. And then we went to Deception Pass and there's like all these Asian tourists walking around. I looked down, I was like, oh shit.
Oh, come on, since you wanted to video with him in bed, that should have bothered you.
Hello, YouTube.
Yeah, right.
40 million hits by the end of the day. You watch. Just because of the candles.
This thing is so slow.
You just gotta add the right tag.
Yeah, the network is ungodly slow today.
Just.
Okay, never mind.
That's the only thing. Super hot analysis.
Oh man.
Wait, no, what was that? What was that tab you had open? Super hot internet.
Oh yeah, what was that? Okay, so what is this TechSmith?
It's calibrating your microphone.
Oh, so you can like record in here?
It's if you use TechSmith,
Yeah, right.
which is what they use here for the recording their presentations, so students can watch it later.
Oh, okay.
Sort of like you do, Ben, in Google Hangout.
Boy, I love how that resolution is like stretched from a standard.
Now it's 4x3.
Yeah. Okay, so just reminder, homework 1 is due Saturday. So
I'll get started on it tonight.
what's that? Extension.
Submitted it yesterday.
All right, that's how you do it.
Hey, can I get that from you?
None of you guys' business.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Gotta do your own
You
homework.
know you gotta look at all the
It's
answers
good to
online.
go.
No, I'm just,
No?
Let's
Why
go.
would you do that?
I'm just trying to, I don't have projects on my.
Keep that to yourself. If you don't have Microsoft Project, you can use something else.
Yeah, what is Dave?
What does it specifically ask you for project?
I use Project.
What does it ask you to do though?
Make a Gantt chart, make a network diagram.
Yeah, use one of those online ones if you don't have one. There's a bunch. If you search for Gantt charts, like,
Don't come up with way too much stuff and you'll go, screw it, download Project.
well,
I was
Yeah.
trying to find project, but I found it, but it was like, I don't know. I
Go
found it on the
to-
official Microsoft.
Go to, what site is it? Give me a second.
DreamSpark.
DreamSpark. thank
yeah,
you.
Dreams
Yeah, I
Spark.
can't log
Yeah.
in.
I
my
can't log
Dreamspark.
into it.
Talk to Naomi.
Go to your email address or in your UM and search for DreamSpark and you'll have one that'll say like sign in or something.
Yeah.
You're already there.
Matter of fact, Naomi sent out the new email today about logging into DreamSpark.
Like,
Okay.
is she-
For the first time though, but I've already logged in last semester for it.
Yeah, I.
And now I tried my same email and password and it won't let me in.
Okay, and she
Yeah.
can reset your password and stuff on it.
I don't really know
You can't
anything
log
about
in
it,
just like
but
straight in through the site with your student email. You have to go through that certain URL that just like automatically takes you there.
I did do that.
Oh,
If you
okay.
Google search Missoula College DreamSpark, it will take you to
Yeah.
a page that has the whole.
I get my Dream Spark from the high school. Is how I get at it. So I don't.
I've already downloaded every bit of software that's on.
I
Yeah,
downloaded all the operating systems.
you download SQL Server and Windows Server, and you got a couple $1,000s right there, a few $1,000s.
Yeah, I got 2008 server, 2012 server,
They just put
R2, R1, data center, standard. And I've got 2 different DreamSpark accounts, so I've got double the keys.
Nice.
I used to work at the college, so I have that account too. Never shut, they didn't shut that one off on me.
Yeah,
Because the university has no
Yeah.
control over that one.
I had that when I worked for the business school.
And that
too.
one-
Like there was just a generic one that everyone used. and-
Oh, no, I had my private and I've got, it's good for 5 years.
Okay. All right. So summary, just talking about last chapter, we talked about like the skills of a project manager, what activities they do. These are kind of the most important thing, just initiating a project, doing the planning, executing it, and closing down. So, and then the Gantt charts and the network diagrams. So like I said, we'll look at some of these tools, but we'll look at some agile alternatives. I posted 4 more tools on Moodle. Taiga, Asana, Do Bam Bam, and Zoho. So,
Something you would like.
Today on hot system analysis, we're gonna do that.
Zoho has a whole bunch of stuff you'll see in here. This is like a, major HR, like all sorts of stuff. But, where is it on here? They have a project like management software, which is, there's so many options out here. It's a pretty competitive field for sure, but that looks pretty good. The Bam Bam thing is similar to, for helping teams work together. They say, of course, it's the best online project management. So I will continue to evaluate these and pick one that we'll use. Asana, they're all, it's hard from looking at just the documentation. This Taiga has Scrum for doing Agile. So you can see these are the burn downs in Scrum when we talk about Agile. And then they also have those Kanbans like Trello did.
This tag got the name.
So, this is new. It's in beta, but actually, I'm kind of liking the look of some of the stuff in here. So,
Did we say free? Nope, you voted.
and these all have, like you can have a free account, but you can only have like one project and one or two collaborators. So they limit it, but I mean, they all have free versions. So
Who's in charge? You can only have like so many assets on the screen at once.
unless you get the educational account, which is very easy to get
Yeah, they just verify.
with your student email.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can have whatever you want.
Maybe you can get a free year of Newegg Prime with the student email.
I did not know that.
You do now.
UA.
Newegg, computer parts, video games. movies.
Oh, Newegg.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've had
it's,
Newegg for so many years, I've lost track.
I think I first ordered something from Newegg in 2001. So seriously, like back before it was like big, so now they sell everything, but,
Back when it was old age.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, dude.
No, before they had all the other companies that sell through them.
yeah, which annoys me. I don't like it. It's messed up the whole site, I think. So I don't buy nearly as many computer parts as I used to either, but
Amazon.
yeah, I used to buy
Tiger Direct.
everything from Newegg for years and years, but I just don't fiddle as much anymore. So chapter 4, learning objectives. So there's some stuff in here where we're going to talk about like identifying what projects you would undertake and kind of then going into that initiation. So the last chapter was talking about the role of the project manager in this larger process. This is then kind of digging down into some of those details. The most important thing in here in this chapter is the baseline project plan. I kind of like how they lay that out for if you were going to do a project with a client, this project plan would lay out some of those details. It has a scope statement that came up in that last chapter, but in this chapter they go into it a little bit more. Just it's basically like a proposal is what this project plan ends up becoming. And then methods for assessing project feasibility. We'll slide over these. Like I said, this is really a business textbook, and I'm going to start kind of being judicious about what we actually talk about because some of it is just not as relevant to us. Project feasibility is a lot of cost estimating and stuff, and we do need to be cognizant of that, but some of it is just beyond the scope of you'd have been a business person do that, some of that stuff. We'll talk a little about intangible and tangible costs and benefits. So when you're estimating how expensive of a project is going to be, some things are more concrete than others. The same thing with the benefits. Recurring and one-time costs, which I think you can basically read that statement and you sort of know what it's talking about, right? Some things happen once, sometimes keep occurring. Support or maintenance is recurring. Cost benefit analysis, again, this is more of a business topic. We'll briefly. So, identifying and selecting projects. So sources of projects. So if you're gonna, and this can kind of be viewed from 2 points. You're an analyst working for some firm that's going to develop software for an organization, or you work within the organization and they have their own development team. So where do these projects come from? Managers is pretty obvious, and individual business units. Now, like I said, this book is formal, and a lot of this discussion is talking about like gigantic corporations, like business units, in Coca-Cola are different than Orbital Shift. So the scope.
Cool. Uses all those shit.
Yeah. Right.
They wish.
Yeah. Exactly. I would be a teacher now. I'd probably be rich. So managers and business units. So basically they're looking to either add a new service to their company or provide more information to help their decision making. So now, again, managers, maybe a little more specific than business units, might want to make a system more efficient, less costly, or they want a new operating environment. So like with Orbital Shift, our pitch to them was that our software could make their scheduling process more efficient. Now the difference with dealing, like they're talking about corporations, the CEO of a corporation is not going to have to agree that, oh, you should use this scheduling software. When you're selling to restaurants and small businesses, the owner usually approves everything, so it's a little different. Like I said before, we had managers that recognize the efficiencies and owners that say, well, I pay my manager to do that. Why do they need to be more efficient? Which is kind of counterintuitive, but formal planning groups. So you may kind of form a team to evaluate certain processes and propose different projects. And again, this stuff is kind of more from the business side. So good to think about where these projects are identified, because as an analyst or the person developing it, it has some implications on what you're doing. So if projects are identified by top management, so the CEOs, the owners, if it's a smaller business, steering committee, this would be as part of a bigger organization. User departments. So when Amber's here, I always use the bank as an example. Like the tellers would be a user department in the bank. They may identify we need a new software or a new system. Yeah. An individual section of the employees. Development group or IS staff. So this is more the tech people in the company saying that
Hey, we need better computers.
from their end, they need something better, So these are just some of the sources. You could think of more. But the implications, if something is identified from a top down, so the owners, the top end managers, like the steering committees or the senior management, generally they're focusing on like the whole global outlook of the organization. Now, again,
Man, these guys are working.
how many companies are global that we will deal with, right? I mean, if you work in Montana and Missoula, you're probably not going to deal with very many global companies. But now, if you go down and work at ATG or something, as part of that job, you would deal with global companies. Bottom up, so if it's from the employees, essentially, that doesn't always reflect the overall goals of the organization. So there can be a disconnect there. And this is just like the Orbital Shift. The employees may have wanted the software because it could save them time and make it easier to get time off. That doesn't necessarily align with what the owner thinks. And then it can go vice versa. So it can have some implications on that whole process of gathering feedback, and then just acceptance of the project. Because ultimately, depending on the type of project, if it's a standalone like software deliverable, if everybody in the business isn't super happy with it, you'll probably be okay because they already paid you for it. But if it's something that you're selling them, like a Orbital Shift, it's a recurring revenue product that they have to keep paying for, everybody needs to be happy or they'll cancel. So, I mean, there's some implications there. So going back here, projects are identified. That's step one. Step two, so you've identified some projects. Next, you'd classify and rank them. So what types of projects are they? How difficult are they to go after? And then, of course, you're going to select what projects. So some factors: perceived needs of the organization, existing systems and ongoing projects. So if you have 10 other projects going, that influence, which certainly influences resources. You're probably going to have some criteria specified within your firm to evaluate business conditions. These are just a big list. So we'll get into some of these decisions on selecting in later slides, but another one of these fun little images. So all of these things feed into the selection of a project, what resources, what your client thinks they need, what you think they really need, what other projects you have going on, current business conditions. And that can both be like, what's the status of your company, what's the status of the companies you're dealing with, and then whatever criteria. So in this decision process, a number of things can happen. You can accept a project and move forward. You can reject the project completely. You can delay and say this is for 6 months. The project may be refocused. Like, this is somewhere in the ballpark, but we need to redirect it a little bit. End user development. So that may be that this isn't coming from the outside, it's coming from the actual end user. Maybe you're going to just purchase a system. You're going to not implement something new. And then maybe there's going to be a resubmit process. So the primary deliverable of this identifying and selecting is a schedule of what projects you're going to do. So, we'll focus in, we're going to be doing one project in this class, but this is just giving that broader picture. Incremental commitment. This is a topic discussed in the chapter that says it's nice if you can build some of these projects so that you're not committed to the whole thing. It's incremental. We'll go this far and then we'll reassess. Are we moving forward? And then a new commitment will happen, and that incrementally moves forward. Rather than committing to a 5-year project that may make neither side happy, the development or the end user. So you continually reassess after each of those phases. So these phases can even be before any code or work is done. It might just be in the requirements. At the end of requirements, we both look at it, both ends, and decide, are we moving forward? Yes. And then keep going. So incremental commitment. This image shows the top-down, bottom-up sources of projects, and then just that's feeding into, we're picking which projects to go after, and then we're building a schedule. So nothing too great there. So, like I said at the beginning, this baseline project plan is probably one of the more important topics of this chapter, which goes into laying out some more specific details of a project, really before the project is started, but it's basically kind of laying out what the goal is and what we're setting out to do. So this is an internal document. So parts of this are going to be shared, parts of it are for you as the team that's seeking to do the project, and we'll kind of look at that. And then the project scope statement. So the project scope is really for both the internal stakeholders and the external stakeholders. So that's a broader document to be shared amongst more parties. With me so far, it's pretty straightforward, right? That scope statement is going to basically be a high-level overview of the project. This is what you're going to kind of pitch around of, here's what we're looking to do with your client. And they'll, depending on who you're dealing with, and it just depends on the size of the business and the structure, who would need to look at that and approve it. It could be shareholders, it could be management, it could be owners. So we've identified a project that needs to be done. We've looked at this scope statement. The next idea is just to assess, is this project feasible? So The book goes into great detail in these. Well, not great detail, but a lot of detail. I'm not going to go into much at all. So, of course, you're going to look at the economic implications. Operational. So, if you're going to implement teller software for the bank, is it going to totally screw up the current teller operations? How does that fit within the operations of the business? Technical. So, are there hardware needs that go with it? Does the network need to be upgraded to support the hardware that you need to run the software? Yeah, there's a ton of technical implications that come in. Schedule, and of course, is what the client wants possible? Because if it's not, there's no reason to move forward. Of course, always this legal thing comes in. So if you can't come to an agreement on a contractual basis, then political, this is more like the internal politics of the business than like who's the president. But as we all know, every organization has a ton of politics that go on. So if you're pitching a product to a company and one of the top managers' brother-in-law is also pitching a project, there's some political implications there. And
Bias.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, that happens a ton. And especially it seems to happen in places like Missoula that are smaller and a little more isolated, right? I mean, that's what everyone
is definitely like that.
Yeah, Missoula, and I think Bozeman, you could probably say the same thing. I'm not as familiar with Bozeman, but so in this assessing the feasibility, the economic specifically, you do a cost benefit analysis. So you determine the benefits. Are you guys familiar with cost benefit analysis? Like I did an MBA, so I did some of this stuff, but I'm not, I don't know. It's interesting getting an MBA when you had zero business background, and I took a year of prereqs and a year of MBA classes, and then I'm like supposed to be some business expert, which is laughable to me. But I had a professor that told us all the time, well, you guys are going to be masters of business, and everyone's going to look up to you in the business world as the experts and like, okay, I did not learn enough in 2 years to. So like, I know what a cost benefit analysis is. If you ask me to do one, I'd have to look it up because it's not like I'd just do it. But I mean, it's kind of obvious. What are the costs? What are the benefits? How do these weigh out? So the benefits, and we're going to talk about tangible benefits and intangible benefits, and then we'll look at tangible costs and intangible costs. So you kind of have both sides. So tangible benefits mean we can measure it. It's measurable. So things that are easy to measure is cost reduction and avoidance. If you're telling a business you're going to implement a project for them and it's going to cost this much less than what they're paying for their current solution, that's a tangible thing that's very easy to lay out there. Error reduction, if you can show examples of how implementing a certain system or process is going to cut down the errors, that's something that can be measured. Increased flexibility, can that be measured easily? That seems a little more in the middle to me. It's a little more difficult to measure. Speed of activity, that can be measured. I'm going to keep using this bank example just because I think it works so well for this. But the teller, if you implement a new teller software and it takes 10 less clicks to complete a transaction, that's faster. That's measurable. Increased management planning and control. That would be like what we pitched with Orbital Shift, especially the control part, because you could see when your employees are on the clock from anywhere, not just when you're physically at the business to look at them, because you could access that online. So the tangible, the measurables, and then the intangibles obviously can't be measured. So now here they put flexibility again, but they're talking about organizational flexibility. That's an abstract concept to tell a business, use our software and your business will be more flexible to adapt to market conditions. Or, I mean, that's, yeah, but how do you measure it? Increased employee morale. You know, this was something we pitched as Orbital Shift, like your employees will be happier because it's easier to schedule. And that is true, but how do you measure that, right? Like, people try to measure that, right? Like a survey or something, and then you implement it, and then you do another survey, and you
set up a couple cameras and see how happy they are when they're using their phone.
right. And then you get into the whole statistics thing, which is pretty. I mean, statistics are awesome and fun to play with and can help you a lot, but they're also pretty easily skewed. I mean, competitive necessity. So telling a business, if you want to compete with your competitors, you need this. I mean, that's hard to quantify. More timely information. This could go either way, because I would say timely information, like if it's the example I said, if you want to know who's on the clock. The big thing about our Orbital Shift is you schedule your employees, and then with the time clock, they clock in. And I wish I could like actually show you our software since I can't log into it anymore.
You didn't keep a copy of it?
I have the source code of where it was when I stopped, but I'd have to set up a database. Yeah. But anyway, so you're scheduled, say, for 32 hours, but the first 2 days of the week, you stay a couple extra hours because the restaurant's slammed. It'll show you at the end of the week, if you work what you're scheduled for the rest of the week, plus what you've already worked, here's how many hours you will have. Managers can actually look at it and say, well, this person is inched to overtime if they work what's scheduled. And
so
then
you only get to work 2 hours.
Then they'll cut the people early to keep them from getting overtime, which that's kind of decreases employee morale maybe. But that's timely information, right? Like usually you get information from a system until you run payroll the next week. But here you're getting it right as you go, and you can cut people early, and people did that. That's timely information, but I would say that's pretty tangible, right? I mean, that's less of an abstract thing. Promotion of organizational learning and understanding. So say you have a system that's going to help with employee training, and they're going to kind of be able to understand what's going on amongst the business. How do you quantify that? So intangible, and I think you could blow these lists up to be huge. You know, these are just some that they picked out in the textbook. So again, the book with its really formal process for this stuff, they use these worksheets to quantify the tangible benefits. So this many dollars in cost reduction, this in error reduction, add it up. You're going to save $50,000 in 5 years. Now you would do this because this is how you convince someone to buy something from you.
Our products only cost $45,000.
Right. But I mean, those numbers are highly estimated, right? I mean, the only one on here that I think you could 100% accurately say is this cost reduction, not the avoidance, but the reduction if you're comparing two systems, right? I mean, that's pretty tangible. So we're still in this realm of this economic feasibility, but now we're going to look instead of benefits at costs. So this is where the cost side of the cost benefit. So tangible costs can be measured in dollars. Hardware. So how many computers do you need? What's the cost to upgrade the network? You can pretty easily estimate those, right? I mean, that's solid. Intangible costs, though, can't be measured. Loss of customer goodwill, loss of employee morale. That has a cost because if you lose customer goodwill, you get less customers and you get less sales.
And you start talking bad about your
Loss of employee morale, they don't work as hard and you lose money. That's right. Employee turnover, I mean, that's the big problem that businesses have. Now, this is real similar to with Orbital Shift, is we would pitch that the managers would spend less time scheduling so they can interact with the customers more, like especially think of a restaurant and do the day-to-day, and that would be $1 thing. But again, that's intangible.
I swear though, one of my jobs, I was working in a restaurant, my general manager, the office accidentally sent out everyone's payroll to one of the other employees instead of just their payroll. And so we saw that everyone gets paid. We found out he made about $60,000 a year, and all he did was sit in the back office and write a schedule.
Yeah.
And then they got software like you're talking about. I forget where it was, who it was, but then you just sit back there and click, drag and drop the names. And
Yeah. And he didn't use the extra time to be a more productive manager and drive profits, because
Nope.
that's what the business owner would want in that
Yeah.
situation. And that's what we tried to tell business owners what would happen if they used our system. But I mean, some of those people have been doing that same scheduling job forever.
Forever, yeah.
You know, it's just been the same. And
yeah. It's kind of funny.
yeah, yeah.
Go talk to the customers more.
It's intangible there, yeah. So one-time costs, this is what I said, I cut this way down. The book goes into this. One-time costs are like you buy the hardware, you pay for the system. The recurring are the support, the maintenance. Now, as we're shifting to the cloud, many things are becoming almost permanently recurring, right? The one-time cost is much less often, but the long-time cost. And then you get into this concept of time value of money. You guys familiar with this? It's like looking at like what $1 is worth today versus what it's worth down the road.
And Bill Gates, if he drops $1,000, is it worth his time to bend over to pick it up?
Yeah, that's part of it. But you do, and we did a ton of this in finance and in business. And I learned it. Now it's 5 or 6 years later, and I know about it, but I'd have to really like study it. So the idea is just showing people, sometimes the cost now is worth the long-term benefit. That's kind of what it ultimately comes down to. Because spending the money now, that $1 is going to be worth more money down the road. So spending it now is kind of better. That's just really poor simplification, but so here's a worksheet. I took this screenshot just because I did it exactly like this in business school. You start with this table here, which has the net economic benefit, which the first year is 0 because we'll add year 0 right when you start. And then you're estimating that they're going to benefit $50,000 every year. That was from that table we had where they said added up all those savings and it would be 50. I can't remember exactly how this discount rate works in here. I did it. So you look at the present value of benefits. So, the present value of the benefits is 0 at year 1. It's this much here. It goes down as you go forward. There's all this calculations. There's a one-time cost at the beginning. There's the recurring cost, which they have as $28,500, some kind of support and maintenance. You do this. There's a formula for all these, and you look. The overall net present value is $35,000, which that means it's good. So here you got the benefit of $180,000. The expense was $145,000, so the net is $35,000, and then you have this overall return on investment calculation. So I did a ton of these things, but it's just the way the business people try to put numbers to these things. But I'm highly skeptical about a lot of these and how accurate it really is. So those other things with feasibility, whether we can go forward with the project, operational, technical, schedule, legal, these are just appearing. We looked at the economic in a little more detail. I'm not going to dig into these other ones. You can take a look at it in the book. Just skim it. It's not. A lot of the book is pretty skimmable. You can.
Those paragraphs are like a page and a half.
Yeah, you can kind of pick the parts that are the most relevant to us as more software people. But so
Yeah.
Now to the part that I think is more relevant and likely is something that you guys will do as part of your project at some point here. Remember my under promise, over deliver? So you weren't here when I talked about that,
Yeah,
but
I'm sorry about that.
oh, no big deal. But the idea is that, promise less than what you think you can achieve, because then if you come up short, your client doesn't care because you didn't promise stuff.
Yeah.
But if you get where you think you will, you look awesome because you did extra. So I do that sometimes as a teacher, because the worst thing is to promise I'll have something graded. I did it a lot in databases, right? Like I never met the deadlines I kept saying. So you're better off if you just never say a deadline and you just do it. Or you say, well, I'll have that graded within 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks. Make it way out there so you're under promising. So at the risk of over promising and under delivering, the worst case, I'd like to have some kind of first step for the project out to you guys by this weekend.
I've got a cool PHP page.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's all done,
You
right?
should see it.
Yeah.
Thanks for database too.
So I haven't really sat down and broke down how I'm going to do this, but I'd like to have, it won't be a project plan, but maybe your first part of it will be some kind of proposal of what you're thinking about doing. That would be due maybe by next weekend, something like that. I want to just start kind of pulling it out of you so we don't get to the end and you're like, oh, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that would be right now. I'm really good at doing that.
Yeah, it's just, I tried to do that in databases and it worked pretty good, but we still ended up getting a little behind where I would have liked to when we got to the end. But at some point you will build some kind of project plan. That'll be part of it. So the project plan has components, has an introduction, so it's just an overview. What the course of action to accomplish the project, the scope, how big is this, who is affected, is it just the tellers or is it also payroll, what systems do we have to interact with, and then the range of system capabilities, a high and low amount of what the scope could get to, worst case, best case on the capabilities.
Worst case, boots up.
Yeah, right. So the first section, introduction, then system description. So you're going to have the alternative solution. So we talked about this before, there's not just one possible solution. There could be several. This is in a narrative format, so you describe it more descriptively, the other part, a lot of these parts are just more like technical writing. This, you try to explain it, make it sound better.
With my product, you can do this.
That,
If
yeah.
you do this, it'll take you to this page.
Yeah.
So kind of like our little summary things that we did.
Sort of like that, yeah. And the book shows this in quite a bit of detail. There's a slide here we'll get to in a second that has an image. You're going to have your feasibility assessment. So how much is the project going to cost and what you estimate the benefits to be. Technical difficulties that may arise, things that may kind of side rail the project, and then a high level project schedule. We're not talking about Gantt charts. The Gantt chart is what, if you're building the project, you're going to use to plan. This is more we'll have beta 1 by here or alpha 1, and to your client, a high level schedule.
Between the state and the state.
Yeah, and make them wide so you can under promise.
Between
Of course,
the 1st of January and the 31st of December, we will have this to you.
you don't under promise too much and lose the contract, right? That's the trick there. But management issues, so you'll have a section, concerns that management may have about the project. So you've communicated with management. Maybe they don't have any, but inevitably they will. So
They don't want to pay you that much.
yeah, right. Team composition, communication plans. We talked about that before. What's the flow of data between the client and the analysts and the developers? Standards and procedures. So this is the formal part. So here's just kind of it shows the format of how this would be: introduction, description, feasibility, management issues. Now, when I have you do this, I'll cut it down some. Like, I mean, this is super formal, right? You could write probably a 20-page one of these for a super small project easily. So we won't go quite that overkill with it, but this is a good image for the details. Like here in this feasibility, they have like the legal analysis, the operational, all those parts we kind of touched on, schedule, who the team members are, who reports to who, that kind of thing. So once you have this plan, it's going to be reviewed for that final decision. So objectives for reviewing it, assure that you're conforming to the standards of the organization. All parties agree to continue. So, and of course, like I said, sometimes this might be completely within inside a company, and it's really that the IS and the development part is agreeing to continue with another unit of the business, right? This can also be that you're an outside firm or a contractor dealing with someone. So there's levels of this. So again, like they show this formal process, and I just threw this in here, like a walk-through review form you could do to walk through that project proposal. Who's coordinating the session, and you walk through with a group, and you have a presenter, and someone's taking notes. I mean, this huge, process. And like this stuff's super formal, but even like at Orbital Shift, the number of meetings like this I sat through in a 3-person company, like I've sometimes felt like I spent a third of my time in meetings, so it only gets worse if you're in a bigger, then you end up with forms like these. So I think we'll actually get done early. We only have 5 more slides left. So I threw these slides in here. The book discusses them, partially because it's useful, partially because I think it's kind of funny. So they start talking about electronic commerce applications and what some of the implications of that there are to a project. So first here they're saying it's for an internet project, it's not really different for the development process. But they talk about some special issues. And these are relevant. It's just this section is another one where the book it's dated, it's 5 years old or 10 years, 6 years old, I can't remember. So this was one that's just kind of funny. Like, what's the internet? That's actually a topic. So it's a worldwide network comprised of individual networks used for global computing and electronic commerce. So, I mean, they felt the need to put a definition. Hi, what's an intranet? So, and an extranet. So these are terms that they define and go into. I think for us, we're all right with all this stuff, right? Yeah. So I guess that's all I put with those 2 slides about the e-commerce. I mean, if you're proposing a project now, I'd say there's probably an 80% chance it's some kind of internet based, as they'd say it. It's online. I mean,
You're not handing out discs because a lot of computers don't have disk drives.
Yeah, right. So there is still a tremendous amount of standalone software, but even things that they use what's it called, Autodesk Inventor a lot over for our robotics. That's how we do the CAD for the robots and stuff. And even you can get Autodesk stuff in the cloud now, which is kind of crazy, So I mean, everything's going to the cloud, but
Sad. Just those floppy disks.
So here's what'll make, well, at least probably us. I don't know about you because you're not as old as we are. But this will make you feel old. Kids came down in robotics from the storage room, and they're like, there's a whole bunch of America Online discs up there. They're like, what's America Online? And they had no idea. And I'm explaining to them, like, yeah, I used to get these in the mail. Like, these were floppy disks up there. And I guess there's a giant stack of them. I was like, you know, this where you got your internet from. Like, they were the provider. And then another 2 days later, someone else asked me what America Online was. Someone not related to robotics. Like, I'm like, wow, I feel really old.
Like, do you know what a dial-up tone is?
Yeah, right.
No,
That's how you got your dial-up internet.
Yeah.
There was someone in one of my classes who was saying that they had a family member who still lived out somewhere and still had like a stack.
I remember
They're
that.
still like, I guess AOL is still a functioning company, and they make like a ton of money every year still.
Yeah.
Like the guy worked for the post office or something, so he just grabbed all the ones that people threw away and just had like a tower of them. It was just every time you run out, you just throw them away.
Yeah, that made me, I mean, pretty regular. Like, I guess these kids are 15, 16. They're, I don't know, I'm 34, so they're a little less than half my age, but just the things that they've never even heard of, you know, like.
Damn you kids and your rock and roll 8 tracks.
Well, I'll play music from like the 2000s, and that they consider like old man music. That's what they'll say.
I remember 300.
Stop playing your old man music. I'm like, it's not that old. Like,
Yeah.
Like, because of the California radio and that, like, something from 2000, like, even something from 2010 is considered, like, old and, like, out
Yeah.
right now.
Listen to
Like,
my oldies music.
they call me old, and I'm like one of the youngest teachers in the school. Like, come on. Like,
yeah.
I remember 300 baud modems.
my slowest one was 14.4, so 14.4K.
Yeah.
But all right, so these summary slides, I think we're pretty good with this. I mostly put these in here because then I punt them to the next day so that we can remember what we talked about. So benefits, tangible, intangible, costs, internet applications, those terms. Wow, we're done pretty early. So we're technically into Unit 2 now as this was defined last year. Like Unit 1 was the first 3 chapters, Unit 2. We'll keep plowing forward. There's a chapter in the book about user interface design. There's a chapter about database design. I think those are pretty useful. Database is probably more useful to you guys that didn't just come out of database class, but we'll do some stuff in there. That's chapters 8 and 9. So we need to get through 5, 6, 7. But like I said, I want to start moving us forward on the project. Like the way the syllabus looks from last year, they didn't do anything till March something, you know, and I want to be way ahead, like till the latter part of March. So I want to be, they did a lot of those written book assignments. And we'll do some, but I want to cut those down, and I'd rather have you moving forward on the project. I just think that's more useful.
I'd rather write code than write book assignments.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have you do that too. And, you know, this class is like, we're kind of out of a business textbook and, you know, but it's still a computer science class. So I want to get back to that stuff. The description of the class makes it sound like a business class, but that's not really kind of what the intent is, but mix the two together.
I haven't taken intro to business yet.
I took it my first semester.
I'm taking it my
I
last semester.
never took, even though I have an MBA, I jumped into,
Did my last semester.
can't remember what they made me take. Who's on the Hangout?
Probably.
I want to see if we can hear you.
Marco?
Unmute the mic. You have the mic checked on.
No, it's not you.
Yeah, the mic has a slash through. That means you can't hear us.
Is there anyone out there?
It might be you. You are one.
Well, goodbye.